speak to things that you might have or want updates on. But a couple of things to get us started. I wanted to make sure to give you a status update on the budget for 2025, where that's at in process and what the next steps are. Speak to the all staff for a little bit and see if there are any questions about that. And then just a couple of other quick updates on other things happening. So I will start with the budget. So we've talked at length about the budget in previous town halls, but Anne and her team spend the greater part of the entire summer putting together our county budget. It takes a lot of work, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of detail as they work with the county budget team that's in the commissioner's office. And we submitted that in mid-August. After it gets submitted through the budget system, and I always attach a letter along with it, it then goes to the commissioner's office and they conduct meetings with each individual department. So it's called a budget hearing, but that makes it sound more formal than it really is. So we had our meeting with the budget team at the end of August. And there we really walk through what's in our budget, what questions they have, what they see that we've submitted for the upcoming year, things that might look different, things that we're asking to continue. It's really our chance to have that discussion and get into more details as they would like. So we did that at the end of August. And then the commissioners come together, and I think it was the second week of September, and they have a full day retreat with just the commissioners, the county manager, assistant county manager, and the budget team. And that's where they're really piecing all of the department budgets together and trying to plan for countywide funding. At the same time, many of you might have heard in the news that there was also a special session that the governor pulled together to see what potential solutions, options there are around property taxes. And the hope was, and actually what they came to was an agreement that they would cap the property tax increase for the next couple of years with an agreement from a couple of very large political advocacy organizations in the state that they wouldn't then run something on the ballot. So while all of this is playing out, the commissioner's team is then trying to make sense of the decisions that came out of the legislative special session and what the impacts will be for the county. So some of you may have actually listened in to a webinar that Josh Fudge and the county budget team provided last week. So happy to answer any questions if you listened into that and had questions from that convening. But really it will cap the increase of property taxes for the next couple of years, which does reduce what the county has then in funding to fund the departments. Not as significantly as what the different options were looking like on the ballot, but it does slow the funding that the county will receive because most of it comes from property taxes. So we submitted our budget and we went through in great detail what we're spending, what we've budgeted, the positions we have, looking at all of it together as we know that the county funding is going to be reduced over the next couple of years. But as we've talked with many of your teams and the managers, our allocations in state and federal funding, some of them are already shifting. And so we're having to make those adjustments within our state and federal funds as well. So we pulled it all together and submitted that to the commissioners. We did eliminate some of our vacant positions where we could, because that will help reduce expenditures, reduce some of the county costs that we have, facilities, other internal county costs go based on the number of staff we have in the department. So we reduced some of the vacant positions that we were holding on to, and then put together our budget, submitted that to the commissioners, and shared with them, we might need to make mid-year adjustments. We might go back to the commissioners based on what we see in our state and federal funding, might need to go back to them in early spring of 25 and ask for adjustments. But we did not make other reductions in across the programs. We have already made policy changes. So I know we've had a lot of discussion about the mileage policy. The reason we've had to really change the mileage policy and make it much more prescriptive is because that is a significant cost for our department. And so if we're able to reduce what we're spending in mileage and leverage the county cars we have, then we're not having to make cuts in other areas. Our facilities, we've made policy changes over the last couple of years that we have just asked the commissioners to allow us to continue those. And then we'll watch budgets very closely. The other addition, we asked for very specific dedicated funding as our child welfare prevention grant comes to a close. Actually, the grant ended yesterday. And so we've asked for dedicated funding from the county to be able to continue with those services. And so we should be able to share updates with that team here in the next couple of weeks of what that might look like for them. And then we'll share that out more broadly. So the next steps, the process now goes through what's required in state law, a very public process where the commissioners will now provide their draft budget out to the community, allow them to review it, come to meetings, webinars if they would like, ask questions of the commissioners, and then the commissioners will go through another review of the budget based on the public input, and then it gets finalized in the middle of December. So we still have a couple of months before it will be formally adopted and finalized, but generally by the middle of November, we have a good sense of if there are additional changes that the commissioners need to make, or if they're planning on revising things before it's formally adopted. And then at that time, generally by the beginning to middle of November is when we will also hear about pay increases. The market changes, the merit changes, any pay increases that might come in 2025. There are recommended pay increases in the budget, but again, until it's finalized and formally adopted by the board in December, those decisions won't yet be made until then. So that was a lot. And Gordon, division managers, anything I missed, or any specific questions you're hearing from your teams that we should speak to here, or questions from others?
No, I think you covered it.
All right. If you think of something, feel free to jump in. We can always come back to this topic. So our next all staff is coming up in almost exactly a month. It'll be November 5th. We've sent out some information both to managers on what we're planning, what to expect, and then also put a post on the block. So wanted to share that here and see if there are questions or any additional details that you all would like. So it will be a half day. It'll be the full morning on Tuesday the 5th, and it'll be at the ranch. And we are planning, we've been talking for a couple of years now on trying to convene as a group to do a poverty simulation. To really, it's a continuation of our Bridges Out of Poverty work that we started a couple of years ago to really, it's an immersive experience to go through a simulated experience of what it's like to live in poverty, to have to, navigate many different barriers, programs, resources, and to be able to do that, to give us just a different level of insight, different perspective, based on the services that we provide and those that we serve in our community every day. So it will again, be at the ranch. All of the details are on the block. And we are asking, so for those of you that have had a role on one of our mini strategic planning committees, we're actually going to ask you to wear the hat of a resource provider or a professional in that experience. And then if you haven't served on a strategic planning committee, you'll have a different role that you'll receive when you arrive that morning. We have been assured from the organization that's helping us plan this and conduct the event that the experience will be just as meaningful regardless of what role you have or what you know what you might play during the day. So don't worry that you might have a different experience if you're playing a resource provider or if you're playing an individual community member. It will be impactful for all of us. Because of the size of our group, we'll split up into 3 smaller groups. So we will actually have 3 simulations happening simultaneously at the ranch, and we'll share. There'll be a lot more details coming and a lot of details that'll be provided that morning when you arrive. There will be breakfast provided. We are going to close the welcome centers so that our welcome center teams are also able to join us. So we'll make sure that that information is posted in the welcome centers, and we share that out with the community so that they know we'll be closed for the better part of that morning. And then we're working with the state hotline to see if they can cover the hotline calls for us as well that morning. The most important piece I would say at this point is that you make sure to go in and accept the Google invite that's on the calendar. That gives us a sense of how many are able to come and be able to then look at the role assignment and be able to give more information back out to you. So please make sure that you go in, I would say as soon as possible. If you can do it by October 18th, that will give us a sense of the numbers, and both for food, but also for planning the logistics. So if you do not have that appointment on your calendar, everyone should. It went out department wide. But if you don't have that appointment on your calendar, reach out to Kayleen or reach out to your supervisor, and we can make sure that you get it. This has been a monumental task to plan through our EDIB committee, Thad, Vanessa, Kayleen, our contracts team. So it's been a lot of planning. There are a lot of logistics to do this for a group of our size. So want to thank all of the planning that's happened, and it should be a really good event. What I would also say is that it will be an immersive experience and may be very difficult for some to go through. So we will also make sure that you have resources available. We will do a debrief before we wrap up that morning so that we can also debrief that day. But then we'll make sure that there's opportunities and resources afterwards if you realize that it's impacting you in different ways after the event. Thad, Kayleen, Vanessa, anything else to add? Jill put a link to the blog post. So if you haven't seen that yet, it's linked in the chat.
Okay, one thing, Kayleen, I'm thinking that we were all the folks that are gonna be supporting the resource tables, for lack of a way to say it, we're gonna need to show up at 8 to be trained on their role. I'm wondering if you could send an appointment to all of those folks from 8 to 9, just so that they're aware.
Absolutely. Once we finalize who the resource leaders will be, I'll send an invite out so everyone has that correct time.
Okay. So just as a heads up, that your appointment might not show up for a bit, but if you are on one of the strategic planning committees, including the Hope Navigator team, we would need you to show up from 8 to 9 because they train you on your role in the resource. You actually get a little extra time as part of the process, but to help you be prepared for your role as others are interacting with you.
Thanks, Thad. That's a crucial detail for sure. We might also ask for additional volunteers just to help get people checked in and to the right place, the right time. So if you're interested in that, let Kaylee nor Thad, Vanessa know. Anything else on the all staff? Okay. Just a couple of other quick updates, and then again, happy to speak to other things that might be on your mind. Couple of things related to our SNAP program. So we had FNS, our federal partners, were on site last week doing a review. We were selected as one of 4 counties. So there were 2 large counties and 2, I think, very small counties that they selected specific to our claims process. And so they reviewed all of our policies, procedures, interviewed a pretty large team, and then did a case review of several cases. So that work happened last week. We haven't seen any sort of draft report or feedback from FNS yet. But as soon as we get that, we'll be working with the State Department to see what opportunities might have been highlighted, or things that they would ask for us to share with other counties about our process. So when we get that feedback, we'll work through it with the State Department and with other county peers. And then we may have additional meetings or pull together groups internally if there are things that we need to tweak or revise. The other piece related to SNAP is that we have an exciting opportunity. A group of staff, Taylor Little, Vanessa Fuel, I think Jolene Stewart, we had a group that pulled together and wrote a pretty significant grant. And the grant is really a continuation of our Community Access and Outreach Committee that's been working under the strategic plan. That how do we expand access to our services outside of our locations? And we were notified 2 weeks ago, maybe, that we were awarded the grant. And the grant is specifically to purchase a mobile office of sorts. So to be able to purchase a vehicle that is specifically outfitted with the right technology and the right equipment, so that we can go up into different areas in the mountains or just different communities in the county and expand access specifically to SNAP, but we are looking at the opportunity to expand the access to other programs through that work. So very exciting. A couple of grants similar to this were provided about 2 years ago to different jurisdictions across the country. So we've connected with Monterey, California, where they received a grant and are taking a very similar approach. And then there are other grantees as part of this round that we'll be watching to and see who else is trying new things that we might be able to replicate, and but starting to plan for the logistics and what it might look like and how we're going to add this to how we provide services. So thank you to that team. I know it was a excuse me, a very heavy lift. Writing for federal grants is not easy, but a really exciting opportunity to impact our community in a way that we've been planning for and trying to work through for the last couple of years. Anything else on SNAP? Right. The only other 2 quick updates. So just wanted to remind everyone, and we'll put a reminder on the block, that our wellness rooms, we have wellness rooms at each of our locations. I just want to remind everyone that those can be booked as you need them. So go in and reserve the time so that you know that it'll be available. But those are specifically available for nursing mothers. If you have a virtual appointment at the clinic and would rather do that appointment virtually as opposed to going to the clinic, other wellness like activity, they can be used for meeting with a peer ambassador or a peer navigator. really anything wellness oriented that you need throughout the day. Go in and book it. We'll put all of the details and the reminder of that on the block. But know that you can book it so that you know it's available when you need it, and make sure that those are being used for those activities. There's also maps on the block if you need help locating one, finding the wellness room and the location where you're at. That's all on the block as well. So we'll get that sent out to everyone. I think the last update, and I'm gonna look to Jill, Taylor, and Amanda, you're all actually right in line on my screen. So we have one more round of town halls beginning of December. And that one's gonna look a little bit different. We are gonna spend the majority of the time in that town hall sharing sort of a wrap up, if you will, of our current strategic plan, and then sharing out what will be the objectives and the priority areas for the next strategic plan that'll start in 25. So many of you participated in focus groups to help give feedback into our strategic plan. We sent a survey out very far and wide into the community to get external feedback. We met with the commissioners, Equity and Inclusion Advisory Board to get their feedback. Have pulled together a lot of information to try to help inform what we prioritize in the next 3-4 year strategic plan. So that'll be the agenda for the December town halls, to be able to walk through that and share what those priority areas will be, where there's opportunity to join a group, a committee, if you want to engage and work on any of those priority areas. But certainly also to share. We've had some really significant accomplishments from the last strategic plan that are really exciting. So to be able to walk through those as well. Jill, Taylor, Amanda, anything to add?
I think you covered it. Thanks.
All right. Division managers, anything else that I didn't touch on? Jill's already way ahead of me. Jill and Erica, we've got the block to the post, the block post around the all staff is there, and then also the wellness rooms. So that's in the chat. We'll pull it into the minutes as well. What else? Any questions or other updates from teams? Anything else we didn't cover? We can give a quick update for those of you at 1501. So we've shared this with the teams that are directly impacted so that they're aware, but we are working to replace several windows at 1501. We had some vandalism that was done a week or so ago. And so we're working on replacing those windows. Right now, they're just covered because the glass, the break in the glass actually came all the way through. So we've got them covered so that no one gets hurt. And then when the windows are ready and we have an installation plan with facilities, then we'll take those conference rooms offline. But for the time being, you can still use them. But you may notice that the windows are covered, and there's caution tape just so that they are safe while we continue to use the rooms. Anything else? We will also be sharing the information from the last HOPE survey. So many of you, we had really great response to the follow-up HOPE scale, the individual HOPE scale, as well as the collective HOPE scale, and then some added questions that Dr. Ferris suggested that we add. So we'll be sharing out more information as we're pulling that information together and analyzing it and looking at what might have changed or what still looks the same as when we did the first scale last year. we'll have more information on that as well. Anything else? We do have one more town hall, I think, later this week. So it'll be same information, same format. And then we'll get the notes posted to the block after that. If there is nothing else. Thank you, Emily. Yes, so there was a countywide email, I think it went out yesterday, about open enrollment. So their open enrollment is coming up the last week of October, the first week of November. And it does require you to go in and select the benefits for next year. So even if you are not making changes, please make sure you go in and select your benefits for next year. That will close on November 8th. There is no way to reopen it. There is no way to waive that deadline. So there will be a lot of communication coming. And we will make sure for those, if we have staff that are out on extended leave during that period of time, they also get the information. It's sent to their home. So for those of you that might have staff on extended leave over that period, the benefits team and HR will be in touch with you, and we will make sure that the employees get the information about that. So just a reminder, you do have to go in and select your benefits for next year, even if you're not making changes. So there'll be a lot more communication coming about that. We'll get it on the block, but I know HR sent an email with all of that information as well. Thank you, Emily. I forgot all about that. The email also outlines changes to the benefits for next year. That I thought was really helpful. It gives a good overview of the different options and the changes that are coming. Anything else? Any other questions? Topics we didn't cover? Crazy that we are already almost to the end of the year and another round of holidays. So as we start planning for the meetings and getting everything on the calendar for 2025, we will be looking to you all for feedback if these town halls are still beneficial, if we should continue them, if you have other ideas. We'll be working through that here in the next couple of months as well. So if you have any feedback, please send it along. And then we will figure out a way that we can gather that feedback or other ideas that you might have, but please send it along. John, to your question, I don't know that we know the reason. It was an individual struggling, going through a rough time, and decided that was the outlet they were going to take. So, we worked with the security team, the security guards on staff, but also the security manager with the county, Fort Collins Police. So there is not an ongoing safety issue. So I think an individual in our community struggling, and unfortunately took that as the route to work through that frustration. Any other questions? It was actually first thing in the morning, I think before we even opened facilities when they arrived. I think they arrived an hour or two before we opened. It was actually happening at that time. I think the only other thing I would say that's related to that, but related to our work in the community, our work at other locations, just being diligent and making sure that you are aware of your surroundings. If you have a client or someone in the community that you're working with that is making threatening statements or making statements that seem a bit odd, sort of raise red flags for you, please share that with your supervisor, share it with Sarah Witherell. If it gives you pause, causes you to have red flags, trust your intuition, please share that, so that then we can connect with you and determine if there is something more we need to do about it. But certainly so that you all know that you are supported, there are resources. So please continue to share that with your supervisor, with Sarah. Don't wait until it escalates and then becomes a bigger issue. If it's giving you pause or, you just have an odd feeling about it or something feels off, please share that so we can talk through it. We haven't talked about the specific policies for CYF. So I can give a little bit of context and then that if there's anything more you want to share about that. So there are a couple of new policies for CYF. Some of them have actually been required by the state, either through rule or legislation. So policies that we needed to finalize and are now posted externally on our website. And also shared back with the State Department. And then just other policies. There's also, we took the opportunity to just look at practice and see where we needed to refine things a little bit or clarify processes. So those came out. We've shared them back with the state. They are also on the website. One or two of them are on the website. I don't remember that off the top of my head which ones, but that was also a requirement and rule that we post them to our website. So I don't know if there's anything more you want to say, or Neshama, if you have specific questions.
I don't know if much more to say. We posted it on the blog, so all the links, you can find the policies in. If you go through the OnBase, you can search them and find them in OnBase. I had an open house, virtual open door last week, and I didn't have anybody show up, but I have another one coming up on October 18th if folks want to just join that one and we can have a more in-depth conversation about policies and questions if that is of interest for you. But happy to have conversations as needed. And as you're, those two of those policies are in essence required from the state. We also had to have a public facing posting, as Heather said, about the falsification. I don't, some of you may have seen in the press that the incident that we had that had the falsification by a prior worker had the 99 counts. It was pled down to 2 counts in a plea agreement with the DA's office. And so sentencing hasn't occurred yet. So there's a pre-sentence investigation occurs. So we don't have any final outcome with all that process, but it's a pretty significant swing from 99 counts down to 2, obviously, but it's relatively rare that that people get charged across the state. So it is still kind of a bit of an outlier compared to what's happening in some of the other counties.
I think the only other thing I would add is it is specific in these CYF policies, but we are having broader conversations just about how we solicit the feedback from those we serve. How do we get that feedback to know that the service we're providing is high quality and is what they need? And so we are continuing to have those conversations, and you'll likely hear about that across the divisions as we brainstorm ways that we can improve those processes to get that feedback. So I know that is also a theme in the CYF policies. We want to hear who we're serving and that they are receiving what they need to in the best way that they can. And so that's a conversation that's going to continue. And there are elements of that in the CYF policies specific to how we can gather that feedback in child welfare. Just related to policies, so I don't know, Jill, 2 or 3 months ago, more than that, probably 6 months ago. We all got the notification countywide that we needed to go into Power DMS, the new policy tool, and acknowledge. I think there were 6 policies that all staff needed to acknowledge, and then department directors had many more than that we had to acknowledge. I think I had to acknowledge 72 countywide policies. So as that tool has become available within the county, it helps one make policies much more readily available, easier to search, easier to find, revise, and read. So we are also taking the opportunity to move our policies into that tool for human services. So we'll continue to share that with you all so that when all of that work is done and all of the policies are in Power DMS, you know where to find them and how to search, how to locate those as you might need them. Some more information coming about that also. Any other questions? All right. If there is nothing else, we will, like I said, have another town hall. I think it's later this week. So for those that weren't able to come today, that opportunity is there, and then we'll get the notes published to the block so that it's available if you missed either one. And then the appointment for the next round of town halls is already on the calendar. So that's our last one for this calendar year in early December. And that one will focus more on the strategic plan, but can touch on other topics or questions that you might have at that time as well. All right. Thank you all. Good to see you. If you think of other questions, please reach out. Have a good day.